So for many of us, our middle school memories are not necessarily our best or our happiest. I remember being in the 7th grade, and I come from a family of 5 kids, so we didn't necessarily get to buy brand new clothes all the time, which was fine when I was younger. I would wear hand-me-downs from friends or neighbors, never bothered me at all. When I got to middle school, I started to care a little bit more, and I started begging my mom to take me shopping. I wanted to get some new clothes, look a little cooler. So finally, I convinced her. And one weekend, we went to the mall. I was looking around, and I found these shirts that I loved. It was this polo shirt that fit me just right, and it had this monkey on the front, which I thought was awesome. And it was fairly inexpensive, so I could get 2. I got one in red and one in light blue. I love these shirts so much, I basically just started alternating back and forth every day, wearing them to school. And eventually my peers started making fun of me, saying things like, oh, what, you only have 2 shirts? And, well, that obviously bothered me. And I guess I worked out in my head somehow that this was my mom's fault, because if she just bought me clothes more often, this would never happen, right? So I went home and got upset with her. And of course her reaction was, what do you mean I buy you new clothes and you get mad at me? That doesn't make any sense, you're being materialistic. So now I was confused because I hated being made fun of. And I really just wanted to wear clothes that made me look cool. And now my mother was suggesting I was being materialistic, and I was starting to think maybe she was right. This incident in my life is ultimately no big deal. But the fact that the memory sticks so clearly with me today shows that it did have an impact on me at that time. Middle school stories are filled with these sorts of things, and some of them so much more serious. We've all heard of teens now feeling the pressure to present themselves or to behave in an over-sexualized way. We've all heard stories of suicide that has happened because of bullying. And what I want to propose here today is that junior youth, middle schoolers, those aged about 12 to 15, they deserve a better experience than what society today typically has to offer to them. So let's think for a moment. What is the typical image of a junior youth in our society? Well, there's this idea that they're these raging balls of hormones that are very rebellious, they're whiny, they think of themselves. They might not be so capable of understanding complex ideas. Has anyone here seen the show Malcolm in the Middle? A few of us? Great. Well, so I grew up watching this show, and I loved it. It's this hilarious portrayal of a family with 4 boys who are adolescents. And they're just whiny and rebellious and incompetent, and the crises that they go through wreak total havoc on their family and their community. And I love this show, it was funny, but I have to wonder what it does to our society when that's the image of youth that we see. To take a more serious example, Sigmund Freud once said that adolescence is a temporary mental illness. And Anna Freud said that it is an abnormal state. I remember being a junior youth and hearing adults say things like, oh yeah, you know, so-and-so's just a teenager. It's what they do. You got to get them through that phase of life and hope they come out the other end. But you know, when I was a youth, that's exactly how I felt about it. It was awkward and it was uncomfortable, and I really just wanted it to be over. And I'm not the only one. A 2011 Pew Research study found that these are the words that American teenagers most frequently use to describe their peers' behavior online. It's horrible. But does it really have to be this way? Is there really something about adolescence in and of itself that makes it inescapably awful? When I was in college in Philadelphia, I encountered a program that suggested that it could be otherwise. The Junior Youth Spiritual Empowerment Program rests on a different set of assumptions about the nature of adolescence. Along with these changes, the physical changes that accompany the end of childhood and the beginning of adolescence, comes a rising awareness of self and an increased concern with their talents and their capacities, a desire to develop spiritual capacities in particular. As you know, the armpit hair and the deeper voices come in, so does this new ability to think critically. They might have blindly followed the example of adults when they were younger, but they don't necessarily do that automatically anymore. And the habits that they develop at this time of life will last them forever. Now, with this rising awareness of self come a lot of changes, and that could be channeled in a positive or a negative direction. So given that this program attempts to channel that in a positive direction, what exactly would that look like? Well, another core belief of this program is that youth of this age have an inherent desire to belong to a group of their peers. So the junior youth program offers them the opportunity to, in a group of 5 or 10 or 15 of their peers, come together and build true friendships. These are not friendships built on things like common fashion choices or a love for certain celebrities, although the youth often share those as well. But the friendships here are based on something deeper. They're based on a desire to belong to something bigger than themselves. In an environment free of the threat of bullying or teasing, they can come together and explore their common questions. The environment should be friendly, it should be loving, it should be intimate, but not frivolous. Another key element of this program is the role of the animator. An animator is essentially a slightly older peer mentor, someone who can relate to them because they've gone through that phase of life not so long ago, someone who sees them not in a teacher-student relationship or an instructor-pupil relationship, but as an equal, someone who they can really relate to, be a true friend to. An animator should also have gone through the training so that when they look at these youth and interact with them, they see them as inherently noble beings, endowed with capacities that can develop beautifully if just given the opportunity to get a little bit of education and to spend time in a healthy environment. One final idea that underlies this program is that of the twofold moral purpose. Now, the key here is that as human beings, we're responsible for growing as individuals, developing our own capacities, making personal progress. And second, we are responsible for collectively contributing to the betterment of society. And the essential idea here is that 1 and 2 cannot be separated. If we try to do them on their own, it won't work. They have to go hand in hand. So given that this program wants to do that, what kind of activities would enable that to happen? What would that look like? So we have 3 basic elements to our program. We have books. There is a specific curriculum designed for the use of this program. It's basically stories about junior youth from all around the world, how they encounter difficulties, how they overcome obstacles, how they maintain their hope along the way. Second, we have service projects. And the key here is that no one's telling the youth what they should do to serve their communities. The youth are responsible for reading their reality and deciding what it is that they can do to contribute. For example, in our group here in Hillsborough, the girls noticed how older youth were sacrificing their time and their energy to provide this program for them. So they wanted to do something similar for younger children, and then they dedicated their afternoons to tutoring elementary schoolers. And the third element of this program is just spending quality time together. We do art activities, we play sports, because this isn't just a group that we attend once a week. The relationships we build, the attitudes we develop, they come with us through everything we do. They're a part of our integrated lives. But before I tell you much more about my personal experience here, I was hoping we could take a second to zoom out and think a little bit about the global impact of this program. So I originally encountered this program in Philadelphia when I was in college, but the program exists all over the world. It was actually founded in Colombia, where it's been present now for well over 10 years, and has really been powerful in that community. Some examples of other places where it's been powerful, had a powerful influence, are Atlanta, Georgia, Toronto, Canada, and Khojan, Tajikistan, in addition to Kenya, Panama, India, and all of these other places. And when I see how effective this program has been in all of these locales, it makes me think that there's something truly universal about this need, about the need to get youth together in healthy and positive spaces. But when I first encountered this program, I was deeply skeptical of these ideas. I wasn't so convinced that adolescent youth had all of this amazing capacity within them. Because when I reflected on my own adolescent experience, I didn't see myself as being inherently altruistic or having some deep desire to contribute to the betterment of my society. Certainly, no one around me showed me that they felt that way about me or my peers. But maybe that was the problem all along. Maybe if youth like me grow up thinking that adolescence is, a temporary mental illness, maybe we will internalize that belief. Maybe if we perceive the expectation that we'll be rebellious and self-centered, well, maybe we'll live up to that expectation. And could we really be blamed for that? I'll be the first to admit that when I was a youth, I fell into a lot of the negative stereotypes. I was very sarcastic, I was often materialistic, I was sometimes rebellious. But even though these stereotypes may exist for a reason, what's the real origin? What's the real cause? Is it really that adolescents are inherently awful? Or does it have more to do with the image that we give them of who they are? Does it have more to do with the attitude of adults toward them in society? Although I've seen this program in different cities around the world, my longest and most intimate experience was right here in Hillsborough, New Jersey. So about 3 years ago now, there was one very dedicated animator and one very special junior youth who came together and wanted to see if this program that had been successful around the world could also work right here. So this youth and her family opened up their home once a week so that she and her friends could come together, study some of this curriculum, and see what happened. And even though there has been amazing learning generated all around the world about what makes one of these groups successful, it took a lot of trial and error to figure out what would make it work here, because every group has its own character. So, for example, our group is called the Compass Club because the girls have decided that the group is really about developing their moral compass. When we think about community building in our group, we're thinking about a pretty broad area because we live spread out throughout Hillsborough. Whereas my husband's group in one town over, they all live in a very concentrated neighborhood, so their conception of serving their community looks quite different. When we memorize inspirational quotes together, we're more likely to use songs or hand gestures to memorize things, whereas my husband's group prefers to write raps. But what unites all of these groups around the world are the same lofty goals. And the thing about really lofty goals is that you usually don't see transformation overnight. You never see transformation overnight. So, for example, in our Compass Club, one day we'll have an amazing hour-long conversation about how gossiping is ruining their school experience. And then the next week, we won't be able to sit still for 15 minutes and we get none of our curriculum done, which is fine. But now that the group has been around here for 3 years, we've seen really concrete change. We've seen very, notable milestones that we've passed. And I thought that today I would share a few of the ideas that we've learned together with all of you. And when I say ideas that we've learned all together, I don't mean ideas written in the book that the girls memorized and learned to parrot back. I mean, these are things that we really consulted about together. We thought about this, and we decided to incorporate that into our lives. So first, we don't need to be mean to be interesting. One day in our conversations, we were realizing that a lot of us had this assumption that if we were nice 100% of the time and always respectful and polite, that would be boring in some way. With a little bit of interrogation, we were able to break that idea down. Second, we need to be truthful always. There are so many opportunities in day-to-day life where we could tell a little white lie, smooth things over, but even if no one is directly hurt by the lie that we tell, we can't compromise that standard because truthfulness lies at the foundation of all of our virtues. And finally, we find joy when we lose ourselves in service to others. If we're always thinking about my needs, my wants, my desires, we're not even that likely to make ourselves happy. But if we're thinking about our parents, about our siblings, about our community, that's what brings a joy like nothing else. And finally, just one last thing that I personally have really taken away from this program is the need to live a more coherent life. When I first got involved with the junior youth program, I remember thinking, well, Great, if you're passionate about this issue, you should become an animator. And if you don't become an animator, that's fine, but you're not a part of this process. But then later I realized, this isn't just an activity that I go to once a week and check off my to-do list. An animator is not the only hat that I wear in life. I'm a full-time PhD student. I'm a wife. I'm a very pregnant woman, soon to be a mother for the first time. But I take the postures and the attitudes of this program with me wherever I go. Because whatever our interaction with youth may be, whether we are teachers, whether we're parents of youth, whether we have no other interaction with them apart from sharing this planet with them, if we really don't like it when they're rebellious or self-centered, and if we really want for them to develop spiritual capacities, then we have to be able to show them a different type of attitude. We have to be willing to show them through our deeds and our words that we believe in their capacities. Thank you.